Now that we understand the keyboard shortcuts for controlling the size and opacity, I want to show you another way that you can control the size and opacity and a couple other brush attributes very easily without ever leaving the canvas, which is of course a very important thing because we want to be as productive as possible. Anything that takes us away from our art is a bad thing. So what I want you to do now is to go ahead and, well, first let's go ahead and edit clear so that we can see this. And we'll just make a mark. So right now we're at 100% and our size is at 11.1. If you hold down the Control and Alt keys together and click and drag, you're going to see that we're actually pulling out the new size for our brush. So we can make this brush smaller. Right now the radius is about 14. If I pull this, I can make the radius up to like something like 39. So that's fine. If I let go of those without letting go of the mouse that I'm pushing down, I can still keep pulling in and out. But if I tap down the Control key one more time, now if I move to the left or the right, I'm controlling the opacity. So I can go to 100% opacity, or I can go to 0 opacity if I keep pushing far enough to the left. But let's just say I want to go to someplace around, say, 35 opacity. And then as I'm holding down still on my mouse or on my Wacom tablet, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control one more time. And now as I move, I'm controlling the squeeze, and the squeeze is basically the roundness of the brush. So here I can make the brush very thin, like so, and this makes it more of a calligraphic type brush. And then if I hit Control one more time while I'm still holding down on my pen on my Wacom tablet or my mouse, like so, now I'm controlling the angle. And in this way I can actually set up that calligraphic brush stroke exactly the way I want it. So I'm going to let go, and that's going to let me have exactly the brush that I want. So you can see here that my opacity is at 34%, my size is 40, and I've also got a custom squeeze and a custom angle. And so when I make this brush, you can see this brush is significantly different than what it looked like before. Now if I hold down Control and Alt again and click and drag out, you can see that I'm back, and I'm just going to continue holding down on the tablet, and you can see I can keep moving in and out, but I've let go of Control and Alt, so I'll tap Control one more time. And now we're controlling opacity, so I'm going to go to 100% opacity by pulling to the right. I'm going to hit Control one more time, and now I'm going to go ahead and increase the squeeze a bit so that it's a fatter, more round shape. I'm going to hit Control one more time to go to angle, and this time maybe I'm going to get an angle that's more straight up and down, like so. And you can see I can control the degrees very precisely, so I'm going to go to 180 degrees. And I can hit Control one more time, and that will allow me to go back to radius. So I can keep cycling through these until I get exactly the brush that I'm looking for. So I'll hit Control one more time. I can control opacity, but I'm going to be fine at 100%. And now I'm going to control that squeeze back down to say 30%. And I'm going to let go. And now I've accepted those values, and I've got a completely different brush. So you can see without ever having left our canvas, I've completely changed my brush properties and ended up with a completely different brush. Now, some brushes will work with those sets of commands and some won't. Generally speaking, when you're working with this, and I'll hit Edit Clear again, you're going to want to go ahead and Control Alt, drag out, and the radius is something that you'll definitely want to control on pretty much all your brushes this way. And again, just make sure you hold down on your pen on your Wacom tablet, and then hit Control again, and opacity is something that you're pretty much always going to want to control in this way too. If you hit Control again, the squeeze is not necessarily something that's always going to work well for all of your brushes, so generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend that you mess with it here for the most part, unless you have a particular reason to. And if you hit Control one more time, the angle again is something that you probably don't want to mess with unless you have a particular reason to, because again, it gets into some very precise stuff that I'll go into in another series. So I'm just going to go ahead and let go of that to accept those back to the default values. And now if I make this, you'll see that I end up with a perfectly round, normal looking stroke. And if I go back down in size, by holding down Control and dragging to a smaller size, Control and dragging to a smaller size, you can see how that goes. So that's more of an eyeball method. I mean, here with the bracket keys and with the numeric keys, we can be very precise. Using the Control and Alt and then tapping the various different controls to go through and cycle through all the different options, that's more of an eyeballing method. And it's also very similar to, don't forget, the Control, Alt, and 1 key brings up our temporal color palette. And this right here is something that you can simply click and drag on to make it larger, pick your color, and when you're done, you can, well, first of all, you can move it by clicking anywhere in and moving it around like so. So you can move it directly over your artwork to compare it to the colors that are already on your painting, which is a very nice feature. And when you're done and you've selected the color that you want, so I'll just select a different color, something like so, just click anywhere in your canvas and you've accepted whatever new color it is you have, and you can begin to paint with it. So those keyboard shortcuts, and they're basically all wrapped up around the Control and Alt keys, with the temporal color palette adding the 1 key, and the other options for your brush are just basically tapping the Control key how many ever various times to get to the particular control you want, are going to allow you to stay on your canvas as much as humanly possible and not move out into the interface in order to make changes to your painting tools, which again is all about productivity and good workflow habits.